So right now within our game, everything is working relatively well. There is just a couple of issues. So the first one, let's see if I can get it to appear. All right, so here we actually see both issues at the same time. The first one is that we have this thing where it bounces between the two walls, so there's nothing going on. And the second issue is that the ball, we have a set speed that we want to keep this thing at, but now it's much slower. Sometimes it even goes much faster than what we want it to do. So let's solve these two problems. And for this, we'll make use of collision events in here. So let's see. We have our ball configuration here. And on the shape, so if we go to this ball shape definition, there's going to be these enable contact events and enable sensor events. So we're going to set enable contact events to true. And let's see how we can get a hold of this stuff. So in our simulation, we can run the simulation. And then based on that, we can resolve the contact events. So we have this type here. It's called B2 contact events. This is the entire type name. And we can say contact events equals B2 world. This stuff happens in the world, so we can use it in this B2 world category of methods. And then we say get contact events. Pass in the world ID here. Then we'll have a for loop because there could be multiple contact events within a single frame. I'll make this an int, call it I, initialize to 0, I less than contact events dot begin count. So this begin count tells us how many contact events started this frame. So we'll go with the begin count here and just increment I so we can iterate over all of them. To get a hold of this contact event, it's going to be a B2 contact begin touch event. This is a pointer, so I'll just call this an event. And then to get a hold of this, we can do contact events dot begin events. And this is also a pointer, so we can offset it with that integer value. This will give us the events. And now on this event, there's a couple of things. We have a contact ID, so we can query some other things related to this contact event. And then we also have this shape ID A and shape ID B. These are the two entities that were involved in this contact event. So it could be that shape A is the ball, or it could be the wall or whatever else. We'll need to write some code to figure this out. Let's print some stuff just to see how this works. So I'm going to say event shape ID A, and you might think that that's it, but this is actually an entire structure. This thing, there are fields on here. So we'll take this index 1. This gives us a sort of like an identifier to this thing. So let's run this, and then if we take a look at the console, you'll see there that it gives me 4, 5, probably 4 again. And now I'm going to just debug some stuff here. So let's see if we can figure out what shape is what here. So I have the shape A, I'll output that value. And then I have shape B, and I'll also output that value. And then at the same time, I'll output the ball shape ID. So let's see what belongs to what here. If we take a look at this, so if I close that, so shape A ID is 4, and shape B is 3, and then the ball shape ID is 3. So in this case, that means that the ball is referred to with shape ID B. But it's not always the case. It's not guaranteed. So we'll need to make some provisions for that. So the first issue I want to solve is to get rid of this whole thing where the ball bounces between the two walls. Now, an easy way to do this is to simply say, let's say here, that I'll have an integer. We're going to keep track of how many times that the ball bounced between the walls, one after the other. So every time it hits one of our paddles, it's going to reset some counter. And every time it hits a wall, it's going to increment the counter. And if this counter reaches some threshold, we'll just reset the ball. Set the position to the middle of the screen and set the linear velocity to go to the left or to the right. I'll have a wall hit counter. Initialize this to 0. I'm doing this outside of my game loop. So let's see here. Within my contact event loop here, I'm going to do some if checks. So if the event dot shape ID a dot index 1 equals the north wall shape ID dot index 1 or shape ID b, then that means we've hit the northern wall. So if either one of these shapes refer to the wall, then we can increment the wall hit counter. Similarly, if we want to check if we hit the south wall, we simply need to update this. And we can actually have an if and else here, because if it didn't hit the north wall, then that means it probably hit the south wall. But if it didn't hit either of the walls, then none of this code will execute. And we might even be able to do something like this. Put it all together, so have a longer if statement. And then we just say if. So if either of the IDs refer to the northern wall, or if either of the IDs refer to the southern wall, we can increment this counter. And now let's take care of resetting this ball. So if our wall hit counter across multiple frames is larger than, I'm going to say 5, but to make it easy to see that this is going to work, we can actually just make it 1 or even larger than 0. We can reset the ball. So to reset this thing, we're going to make use of this B2 body method, and it's going to be set transform. Okay, this takes in a body ID, so it's going to be the ball ID. Up next is a new position. This is a 2D position, but I'm sure that's just a vector. And then the rotation here might be able to just initialize that to 0. I see there's 2 values in here. And then in this case, we'll have an X and a Y. So I'd like to put this in the middle of my screen. So on the X-axis, that's going to be at 8. And on the Y-axis, that's going to be at 6. So now with this current code, as soon as we hit a wall, it's going to reset the ball. We can also set the B2 body, set linear velocity on our ball ID. Just give it a new value here. So on the X, we'll make it move negative paddle AI speed, and on the Y, 0. And this means every time it hits a wall, it's going to ricochet or reset back in the center and move towards the player. So let's see if this works the way I expect it to work. See there, it did the thing. But now we have the problem. Wall hit, the counter is still on 1 in this case. So we will need to say wall hit counter, reset that to 0. And then finally, I'll make this some value like 5 or maybe 6. So now let's see if I can get it to get stuck again. So that it looks like it's going to get stuck. And then after a couple of hits, it should reset. And now I can play again. And there we go. So just a quick summary of the important parts. We talked a lot about resetting the ball, but the most important thing of this video is going to be the contact events. So up first, we need to configure one of our shapes to enable these contact events. So whenever there's something collides with our shape, or our shape collides with something, this physics body, it's going to register a contact event. Now, this is false by default because there's a performance cost to all of this. So we have our shape def set up here. And then within our game loop, we're going to query this every frame. So this code will run every frame. If there's no collisions going on, then this loop here won't execute at all. But if we do have collisions, we're going to do these checks. On our B2 contact events type that we have, we can get a hold of these events by querying the begin events at some offset. And then the event itself tells us which two shapes were involved in this collision. And then we can make decisions based on that. And that's it. In the next video, I want to set it up so that there's an invisible collider behind here, so that if the ball goes past one of the paddles, it's going to do something with the score and then also reset the ball. So let's take a look at that.